Okay, so welcome back. We're continuing with Jennifer's story. You saw at the last episode that we said we'd go in through the arrest report in some detail. The 3-page arrest report from McCulloch County Sheriff's Office consists basically of 1 page of information, the second page, which is as a narrative that is the basis for the arrest, and then the final page, which is just kind of conclusory, includes the swearing of the deputy that the statements are true. And I'm going to ask Elsie to put this up for you so you can read along with me. So we see that I've asked Elsie to redact the date of birth and some of the numbers, but you can see that Jennifer's a younger lady, 27 years old. She's a white female, 5'7" and 145 pounds, according to this report. And she has given me information, the permission to share that information. So, and you can see there that the charges are felony cruelty toward a child. The charge description is abuse child without great bodily harm. So let's go on then to the second page, and you will see that this reported in the morning of April 9th, 2023. And let's just go through this line by line. It's not very long. So here we go. Investigation. On 4/9/2023, I responded to 65 Jane Drive in reference to a possible physical altercation. Prior to my arrival, Jacob Robeson, the male involved in the altercation, had left the scene. So some officers might think that the fact that the person took off from the scene could be an indication of guilt. We call it consciousness of guilt. However, the officer in this case evidently did not see it that way. So this guy goes on to speak with, and let's just go ahead and tell you his name. His name is Deputy Haddock. Deputy Haddock with the McCulloch County Sheriff's Office says, I made contact with Ms. Williams, who advised her and Jacob were arguing over getting a divorce. Now, they subsequently did get a divorce, and you'll hear more about that later, but they were arguing about it apparently on this date. And when Jacob grabbed her around the throat, McWilliams, Jennifer, stated she tried to shove Jacob off her and called 911. So we know evidently Jennifer is the one that called the sheriff's office for help. And so going forward, while speaking with McWilliams, Deputy Paul located Jacob at the Kangaroo gas station in Medart. So Medart is another small town near where this occurred, and somehow this Deputy Paul finds Jacob. Deputy Paul detains Jacob and secured him in the back of his patrol vehicle. So he apparently confronts him at the Jiffy store, and then puts him in the back of his patrol vehicle. Now, if I represented Jacob, I would say that's probably an unlawful detention. Nonetheless, placed him in the back of his patrol car, and then Deputy Paul read Jacob his Miranda rights. So if you're not familiar with those, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be held against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney will be appointed to help you, and so forth. So basically, it's a case that came out of the United States Supreme Court that says that law enforcement is obligated to advise a person of their rights, the right to remain silent, and the right to an attorney. And if they decline those rights, that is, they choose not to have a lawyer, or they choose to speak with the officer, then what they say can be used against him. So a lot of people think that law was created to protect the citizen. The reality is, in my opinion, it was created to allow these statements that are made by people who choose not to observe their constitutional rights, to make this evidence admissible against them in courts. Jacob chose not to observe his constitutional rights, but instead talk with a police officer. An interesting thing here you're going to see is that apparently Jennifer was never read her rights. But let's proceed with the reading here. James Miranda writes from a Wakulla Constitutional Rights Forum. Jacob advised he understood his rights and wished to speak with Deputy Paul. Again, my advice to all of my clients and my friends is if you're ever read your rights, your Miranda rights, if they tell you have the right to remain silent, do it. Remembering Ron White's line, he said, I had the right to remain silent, but I did not have the ability. So don't get into that situation either. Anyway, if they read your rights, observe your rights. Choose to remain silent. In fact, my advice would be ask to speak with a lawyer. All right, so advised he understood his rights and wished to speak with Deputy Paul. Jacob advised him and McWilliams had been arguing for the past few days when things started to escalate by McWilliams placing her hands on him. Jacob stated Williams shoved him with their daughter in his arms. Jacob advised he handed the daughter over to McWilliams and attempted to leave when McWilliams attempted to strike him in the face. Jacob further advised he grab McWilliams in an attempt to restrain her. So I don't know if this makes sense to you. It doesn't make much sense to me. Jacob stated Williams shoved him with their daughter in his arms and advised he handed the daughter over and started to leave, or attempted to leave, when Jennifer attempted to strike him in the face, indicating she didn't strike him in the face. So why didn't he leave? Don't know. As he grabbed McWilliams in an attempt to restrain her. So instead of leaving after, according to him, she attempted to strike him, he grabs her in an attempt to restrain her instead of just leaving. Due to conflicting statements, I made contact with Shenandoah Baker, a mutual friend and an independent witness, according to this officer. Baker advised McWilliams and Jacob had been arguing over the past few days over their separation. Well, there's some consistency in the story. Jacob had their daughter in his arms when McWilliams removed the child by unnecessary force, causing the child, keyword here, discomfort. Took the child and caused the child discomfort. Baker advised Jacob attempted to get the child back when McWilliams attempted to strike Jacob. Baker stated Jacob attempted to grab McWilliams when she stepped in between them, advising them not to do this in front of the children. Jacob and McWilliams' oldest daughter was also present during the altercation. Jacob and McWilliams putting their child in harm's way by having a physical altercation while holding the minor child. Both individuals were secured in double lock handcuffs. Both parties were advised they would be charged with child abuse and domestic battery. Digital images were taken of both Jacob and McWilliams on the scene. So significantly, it doesn't appear there was any injury to anyone. No mention here of red marks, no mention here of scratches, no mention here of bruising, no mention here of any injury whatsoever to anyone. Okay, we do know that Jennifer called the police. We just read that. She called to ask for help because this guy had abused her, physically injured her, or struck her or something. She called the police for help. This guy had done this to Jennifer before. She had reported to police. He had been prosecuted, and it just kept getting swept under the rug. Nothing significant ever happened to him, even though she had made these reports numerous times in the past. Criminal history from McCulloch County showing this guy's prior arrest and pending cases. So you should be able to see that on the screen here. So taken to jail without incident. Again, significant. Jennifer was never advised of her right to remain silent. Of course, she was the one that called the police here and asked for help. So maybe that's why they didn't read her Miranda rights. But it's pretty clear that they may have taken the things she said and used them against her. So with the charges, felony cruelty toward child abuse child without great bodily harm, a violation of Florida Statute 827.03 sub 2 sub C. So we'll stick that up on the screen for you there. You can read that statute and see if you think the law was violated based upon these facts. Secondly, the Florida Statute 784.03 misdemeanor battery, touch, or strike. So when a person is involved in domestic violence, so if there's domestic violence one way or the other, two parties are involved, they reside together or are married or have a familial relationship, it can be treated as domestic violence. And in Florida, domestic violence charge gives the police exceptional or special arrest powers where can arrest someone involved in domestic violence. Now, I used to be a state attorney. I've defended a number of these cases, and I can tell you that an officer's decision to arrest both parties in a domestic violence case essentially would make a prosecution, a successful prosecution, impossible. And here's why. In our state and in our country, we have the right to a jury system, and the burden is on the state to prove beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt that the person committed the crime. Well, what does it mean when a police officer arrests both people? What it means is they don't know who did it. And if they don't know who did it, who's the aggressor, who started it, who did it, how is a jury supposed to decide that one or the other of them committed this offense beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? Virtually impossible. So what happens in most cases, after proper training and experience, is the officer is really obligated to assess who is the true aggressor and arrest that person, right? Because then maybe the state can be successful with its prosecution of the individual who really is at fault. So for you law enforcement officers that might be watching, if it's a domestic violence case in Florida, figure out who the aggressor is and arrest that one. Now, I do believe personally that there are exceptions to that, and those are cases where you really don't know. And if you really don't know, then treat the case honestly. Yes, you can still arrest them. What it assures you is if they're both taken to jail, there won't be any more fighting or arguing that night, at least until they were first appeared or bonded out subsequently to their arrest. I have the arrest report of Jennifer McWilliams, and what a tragedy. But that's really just the beginning of this nightmare for Jennifer. But that's how it started. So we're going to build upon that. We're going to tell you what happens once it gets into the justice system.